1 second.
Yep, okay. What's the, yes, maybe everybody can introduce themselves.
So, I'm Alistair Thompson from...
Oh, sorry, no,
Oh,
just
you
waiting
say?
for everyone to set up.
I will read.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, welcome everyone to the Q&A. Time is of the essence. We've only got 20 minutes, so I'd like to kick into it. If before asking your question, if you could just state your name and your media outlet. So who would like to begin? Alistair.
Hi, I'm Alistair Thompson from Scoop.
From
Scoop Media. We're a New Zealand-based internet media company. The question that I was curious to start off with is New Zealand's obviously at the edge of the world. In your opinion, we're at the edge of the world. We're at the edge of the network. We have one connection to us. In your opinion, as an engineer, should we have 2 cables coming to New Zealand?
that, you need the opinion of somebody who look at the problem probably in detail, who's an engineer and an economist and lots of other things. Sorry, I can't.
You don't think
that's
yeah.
I could, given enough time, I could work it out.
Right.
But
sorry, that was a silly question to start with. Yeah.
Sorry.
Pat Pilch, New Zealand Herald. The US has just put some pretty draconian laws in place that penalise people on the DMCA if they try and unlock their phones, SIM unlock their phones, so they can use their competitor's SIM. With the Trans-Pacific Partnership coming into play, there's a very strong probability we could get that forced into our own legislative framework, and we could have the same rules applied here in order to get a trade agreement with the US. What do you say to that?
I think that you should be very careful before agreeing to something, agreeing to, as we say, pig in a poke. You're agreeing to something which has been written down but isn't in fact very well defined. Certainly, if the DMCA allows, criminalises any sort of activity which gets around any sort of constraint on any sort of device, then all kinds of things, then you could get all kinds of trouble. We've already seen with our shorts an example of a law being written too broadly, and there being a lack of sensitivity, without sensitivity on the prosecution to actually apply it reasonably. So I think we have to be careful from now on to make sure that you don't agree to anything which you wouldn't want to actually see happen.
Sure. Thank you.
Among all the organisations, Stephen Bell from the newspaper Computer World, among all the organisations and sectors and lobbies that could threaten the openness of the internet, which do you think would have the most plausible excuse, could most easily carry the people with them, and on what particular point, what particular issue?
Well, we used to have discussions about whether the biggest fear was countries or companies, and it used to be that that depended on where you were on the world. That everybody assumed that China was the pressure was a regime which did the filtering and so on. But of course, countries, very developed countries, countries can be very developed and still have bad internet laws, and it's in a lot of countries it's not now a question of whether it's the government or the countries, it's country or the company. It's a collusion, effectively, between the government and a company. So I think the fact that there is in a way, this sort of important collaboration which does happen to fight cyber security, then this provides a pathway for the industry and government to communicate and quietly between them, remove the protections that citizens used to think they had.
How much protection do they have? In America they introduced sort of like harvesting systems which were intercepting vast amounts of packets and data mining them when there was sort of the Cheney type plans, and now we have data mining taking place against consumers, which is identifying their IP addresses and selling their email addresses and all this stuff taking place all over the place. It seems rife, the attacks on both privacy and privacy and the spying and the blocking.
You've taken a bit of a tour about a lot of privacy issues in one bag. I think let's pull, I suppose, one thing out of that to just as so part of that was then you got concerned about the data mining happening with data the company already has. In a way, look at the flip side of it. If I have a relationship with a company, if I buy my clothes there, it's important to me that they actually remember what size I am. Maybe even useful that they remember what size other people in my family are. Because then that means if I go back and I bought things before, it's much easier for me to buy things again. So to a certain extent, a certain amount of data sharing is valuable. It means, and if it means that yes, they can target advertising at me because they actually know the sorts of people that I buy things for, and maybe even they know their birthdays. In a way, I find that useful. So so to the extent that so there are cases when I'm very happy to have a relationship in which I do share data, and obviously with something like the bank, they have huge amounts of data. I think the questions we need to ask are about what happens when companies exchange data between them. But more than that, I think we need to move to a different sort of level. Now, a lot of the people who are looking at privacy, certainly, for example, at MIT, people who are doing research, they're to a certain extent realizing that we need to start thinking about what is appropriate use. A sort of, in a way, I'm happy for you to use data as long as you don't do it in a way that harms me.